Alright, so I'm going to show how we do a crossover, and we'll kind of start off with just a kind of introduction where we're starting here. So this is the one area in Pittsfield. Kind of hard to see, but we're going to have a right-hand crossover here, and then a left-hand here. And also then there's going to be a switch there that's going to go into the main building of the factory. And then it's also going to come off about here. So right about there. That's where that's going to fit. That's all nice. And then the crossover itself, again, I'm using the quick sticks, so that is going to sit right about, and that's what I'm doing is I'm lining up the throw bar with where I had it marked on the layout. So that's going to sit like that. Alright, so there's the crossover. The right hand crossover, and you can see that this other switch needs to be cut into it. So what I'm going to do is I'll take it back to the bench, and I have it kind of marked up already. You can see where I kind of have it marked where I'm going to take some ties out and what we're going to do. So it's a little bit interesting, but again, one of the nice things about fast tracks is you can do some of this custom track work. So again, this is roughly using the quick sticks as a guide where this crossover is going to sit. And I'm going to build into it this turnout, which is going to sit right about there. So you can see it's close. So I'm going to have to do some cutting in here because normally the crossover would be this whole length here with rail. So I'm going to do some fancy cutting in here, not real fancy, just some cutting in there to make it all fit. So it takes a little bit of thinking before you start. So we'll go to the bench and show you how it's laid out. So here's one that's done. Again, using the quick stick, so basically it starts here and the entire crossover goes to there. Made in a fixture, and then you set it in as one unit. And I'm going to go through a little bit again how these ties are all laid in and how you kind of fit it all together when you're done. And again, you see on the one we're going to do now, this portion is not going to be there because that's going to be the other number 8 turnout. But you can do some, some custom fitting, and then the normal interlocking, so to speak, is just 2 of those back to back, joined here in the center, and that's how we're going to add ties in there. So that's kind of how that looks. How we're going to plan to do it. So Pittsfield's going to be the same thing, just with one of the turnouts doing a little bit of a close cut. Alright, first thing you need, you go to the Fast Track site, you got to print off the template for a crossover. Interestingly, they have a number 8 left hand, not a right hand. So what I did, I actually, luckily they're PDFs, I have PDF Pro. I just went in and I modified it and mirror imaged it so I have a right hand, because that's the one that we're building first, the right hand. So I'll take the left hand, get that out of the way here. So the way it lines up, it's actually a double crossover fixture, but I'm using it for single crossovers, which is you can do. So this lines up like this, and the way this is going to be is these are full length ties, PCB war ties. These are wooden. These 3 are full length, but this one you have to do at assembly, because you can see in the fixture, again, these 3 are PCB, these 2 are wood. So you have the 3 PCB, the 2 wood, and then this one, and the middle one there is going to be, we're going to solder that in when we join the 2 turnouts together. So you got to go through, and I just laid them in here. The crossover ties, you can actually buy crossover ties, and you got to make sure you have the gaps cut in. Again, very important. Again, especially in here between these rails, and you got one here between these rails, here between these rails, etc., etc. So just go through and make sure they're all cut. The rest of them, again, if you saw the other video, this is in my world a number 1, number 2. That's an H and S. These are number 5s. Again, the normal ones for normal turnout. You can normally put a number 6 in here, but what I did, and I'll show, is because of the fact that we're going to tie in a number 8 turnout that's going to be sitting here. we'll go ahead and show. So I used a full length tie here. So, and then what I also do is I have this main line, because what we're going to build is we're going to build this right hand, basically this half of it, and then we're going to extend the stock rails and this frog rail to come all the way down to the end of it. So what we're going to do, again, this is this half, so that's going to sit right like that, and then the other one that we're going to build the other half, and they line up nice. The templates or the quick sticks are cut pretty good. I like that. So what I do is I use the main line fixture, and you can see I put a tie here, here, and here because they line up. And then I get the stock rails, and it'll fit. This stock rail will be one piece all the way down here, be soldered in. And then when I take it out of the fixture, I'll add this tie and this tie, and actually this tie as well, because this one will come across, and it's a normal number 6 tie in my world, but it's a normal one, so I'll add that one as well. So you build basically one half, take it out, you build the other half, take it out, then you put them together and solder all up. Might not make sense now, but as we go through it, we'll show. And now in this particular case, again, because we showed where it's going to sit over in Pittsfield, this is the number 8 that I'm going to tie into it, and I've got it match marked here. So this turnout's going to sit right like that. So I have it match marked to know how to do it. And that's why what I decided to do in this case is make this a full-length PCB board tie. If you can see that, that's where I'm going to cut this turnout. So the rails are going to go to here. I'll solder it to here. Again, all these ties on this one will come out. These ties will remain. So I had to, I don't know if Steve's going to be able to show this, but I cut these a little bit short, and that's cut a little bit short because they're going to be directly across from these ties when I cut it, so they had to fit. You might have to monkey it with it a little bit when we get it in place, but so I'm going to cut it here, so this turnout will come up to here. I'll put it in, I'll solder it to here, rail joiner will be here. So this half, the rails will come out and end here. They'll be soldered here, and they'll come out rail joiner, and then when I get it all together on the layout, this is where we'll use a rail joiner. I'll solder it to this in place. I'll solder it to this PCB board tie, get it to, tied together with the rail joiners, get them soldered, and then come back in and add these ties back in. So that's the plan. Again, it's a little bit unusual, just because we're doing some custom work here to make this turnout sit a little bit closer. So that's the start. And then, like I say, come off for now. We'll save these for later. So what we do now is, again, I have everything in here, pretty much the number. And again, the shorter throw bar tie here is cut. So we're going to get this side in, stock rails up to here, and these rails here, doing the crossover, get it all soldered in. Pretty much like a normal turnout. You're basically building a normal turnout. So that's our scanner going off. And then take it out, set it aside, reload it, build the other half, which won't continue out. I will not be doing this on the other turnout because it's going to match, so it's going to end, right in here somewhere. So that's the start of it. So that gets that laid out, and then once I get the rails put in here, we'll show you that. So more to follow. Okay, so again, you put the rails in as normal. This stock rail, I'd already done these, normal filing and everything. It's going to be a lot shorter because it's going to match up with the other half in here. This stock rail, like I said, is all the way down to here, and then we'll solder it in on this side. Again, similar, this frog rail, again, is long to come down to match up. And this one's going to be short. It doesn't really matter because you're going to cut these in here. So I'll make this frog up, set it aside, get these 2 stock rails soldered in as normal, with the addition then of this side over here. Again, it's not lined up exactly right because of that, but again, this is going to sit in here wherever those line up. You know, I need to move it in a little bit, but you know, those will be. See, I got to move it a little bit back a little bit, but get those soldered in. Same way, get us all done, and then we'll get this soldered in. So you see a lot more soldering to do in here. We'll take it out of the fixture. The actual point closure rails are the same. They're always the same length. So this one, again, that's just going to sit in there like that. That's the same length, and this one's the other side. And I had these pre-done. That's going to sit like that. So those will be, I've got to work on those. Same as the other, a normal turnout. Get this in, make sure they're good, get it filed, come in here, mark it, do your notch, make the little bend, then we'll get that soldered in. Then you take it out of the fixture, we'll do the points down here the same way. Out of the fixture, then we'll go back, we'll add in the additional ones that I don't have because of this fixture. Then we'll set that aside because that half will be done, and we'll make the other half. So we'll keep working along here and providing videos as we go. Okay, here it is with the two stock rails soldered in place. Have that done. Again, up in here, you know, these are just the two single ones. That's where the guardrail is, and the guardrail on this side. You can see it's a little different because it's not really quite as much of a guide there because it's set for double crossover. But there, you know, these are double. These are all doubles here, and then this one secures that in. This is a single on the outside there, and I did have to push out on this guardrail while that solder joint cured because it was bowing just a little bit, but that's not unusual. So, alright, so that's that step, and the next is to put the point rails in. Alright, so they have the point rails are soldered in, and then what I like to do is now put the guardrails in just to get some more stability. But again, in this case, again, this is, again, I apologize, the light's kind of terrible, but this fixture is a little bit different, and this end doesn't have it quite as nice, so you're going to have to kind of be careful. I'm going to do this end first, again, making sure it's nice and flat, and then you know, hold it down and get this end in. This end's normal, you know, it's got the normal groove there for the guardrail, but this side's a little bit different, so I'm going to get those soldered in now. Okay, guardrails are in, got them soldered in, kept them nice and flat. I did check it with the no-go gauge on the NMRA gauge just to make sure in this instance, again, since this one end is not really supported by a groove or anything, look okay. So now we're going to continue on. What I'm going to do now, before I actually pop it out the solder this end, I'm going to go ahead and get the other frog rail soldered in up here so it's good and strong, you know, good and supported up here. Then I'll pop it out and do this the one point rail down here. Alright, so I got the one point rail soldered in as usual with the piece of paper and just soldered that one in there. Then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and solder some of these other ties in here. What I did was I lined up the one half of the quick stick, which obviously has the longer, the straight side from this particular turnout. Lined up some of the PCB board ties that actually fit. Get those soldered in. That'll get me some stability on those long rails hanging out there by themselves. And then I'll probably just wait and actually solder these in actually when I get it inside the quick stick, because I can put them exactly where I want. So we're going to go ahead and get these soldered in here. You see, got those in there. Get those three soldered up, and then we'll take it out and do this other point rail. Get that soldered in, spaced and soldered in, and then the first half is pretty much done. Okay, so we have the other point rail here soldered in. I noticed I must not have been paying attention, and the throw bar tie was over a little bit too far to one side because I couldn't quite get my weight in here to keep it over, which is fine. Visually, it's gonna be, you know, it's fine. Actually, that's perfect because you can't even see that ugly thing sticking out. But on this side, I just went ahead and put a little bit of additional tape here just to keep it this point rail nice and solid against that stock rail there. And of course that made this off a little bit, but it doesn't matter. I'll just drill the hole, you know, somewhere else right in the center. It doesn't really matter. That's pretty much going to disappear once I paint it. At least I hope so. So we're going to go ahead and dress up the points a little bit, and then we'll take a look at the first half. Okay, so they're just sitting in the pair of quick sticks. You can see how this side's going to line up with the PCB board ties. Boy, I say that 3 times fast. In the fixture, and these I'll have to add later once I get it together. No big deal. So you can see how that sits in there. There's these three. This center one here was at assembly, and then all these other ones here will be the reverse of this when I build the other half of it. And this shows how we're going to set the, again, this is just because of this particular track work that I'm doing. That's how that's going to sit in there. And again, I'll discard these ties here, you know, solder in here, and make a connection here with rail joiners there to the other half. So hopefully it'll go pretty smooth. So I'm going to go ahead and get ready to build the other half. All right, one quick thing. I made the frog up here, and one thing I wanted to verify, I needed to check, was that I had this rail long enough. It's going to be short, but I need it long enough. So I laid in the other, again, the number 8 that we're going to match in there. And again, it needs to come at least past this point. That's where I'm going to cut this turnout right here. So I need this rail, and actually this other rail as well, to come just past that. Then I have enough room to do a little trimming and matching it up. So it's pretty important, again, when you're doing this kind of fancy stuff, that you verify it. So I got the point rails soldered together. Going to set them aside till later in the build, and we're ready to start. Again, I got this one all loaded up now with the ties, and then we're going to start this other half of the turnout. Alright, stock rails are soldered in. I just realized that I'm actually out of my point rails. I'm going to have to take a break here and file 2 more. I might do 4 because I do need one more number 8. And here you can see I extended these out a little bit. I had to remember why. That's because you know, this crossover is going to match up to the next one, so that's probably to line up with that out at that end. If I assume I did the other side right, I don't know that I did or not, but we'll see. So, gonna take a quick little break and gotta do some filing, and then we'll get back and get the point rails installed. Okay, got the point rails formed. They're installed here, so we're gonna go ahead and solder them up. And I realized I had to actually make the pair for this one, plus the pair for the other crossover, and 1 additional set. So I had to make a bunch more than I thought, but they're all made. So we'll go ahead and get these point rails soldered in now. Okay, so here's the second half. Didn't stop after every single step because I'm sure you guys are getting bored. It's all done, all soldered together, points done, points are all filed, and this particular one is going to sit in this half of the quick sticks. So that's going to sit in there like that. Once we get her all set, so that's going to be that half, and the other one's going to line up and it'll come along here. So I'm probably not going to put these together this evening, although for you guys it'll seem instantaneous, but let me just show you real quick how these go together. Alright, so here are the 2 halves. And what we're going to do is basically, again, this is the center point. Now these all has to be trimmed a little bit, but we're going to, you know, these are going to slide underneath and vice versa. But first I have to get it marked, and then basically we're going to get it in about like that, roughly, with enough room for the center tie. Like I said, this center tie then is going to go in here once everything's all cut. So it might be a little bit close there. About like that. And again, this will go in at assembly once we get it all cut. So what you have to do, that's roughly where it's going to sit like that, is mark these rails, cut them, mark these rails and cut them. Now in this case, normally this would be a long run similar to this, and it's pretty easy. But since we're going to be tying that other number 8, I'm going to have to mark these as well, using the other switch and as a guide to where I'm going to cut them. And then when everything's cut, it will all pretty much fit together. I mean, we'll have to kind of slide this one under and whatnot, but it'll sit, you know, roughly like that. And that might be a little hard to see, but be about like that, roughly. Like I said, this tie then, when it's all done, goes in there. And it looks kind of goofy here, but gets soldered in. We put rail joiners in there to sort of secure it all together. So that's the next step. So that'll probably be for me tomorrow, but for you guys, stand by. It's coming up almost instantaneously.